And our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Toby, is in the studio. Good morning, Bayo.
Thank you, Juma. Good morning.
Good
morning,
Kinsley.
All right, Bayo. Good to see you.
Nigeria. Thank
That's
you.
right. Juma?
Let's begin with the nation this morning. Above the masthead, we have 3 killed in rescue of commissioner's wife. You find details on page 6. Commissioner's wife in Benue State that was rescued, yes. And APC PDP rejects Jega's call for third force. With Rider, it's time for alternative. Details on page 29. Lawyer Igboho awaiting action on asylum application. Details on page 4. Varsities to get 30 billion next week, says Minister. You find all that on page 3. Just below the masthead, Disu takes over from Kyari at IRT. You find that on page 5. Katsina gives motorcycles to teachers. And headlines we have in the Nation newspaper: Oshibajo team working on ways out of APC's legal ditch. Oshibajo's team working on ways out of APC's legal ditch. With a rider, why last-minute attempt to postpone world congresses was stalled. You find all the details on page 4. Stringent COVID-19 measures likely with the new Delta variant. Stringent COVID-19 measures likely. NNPC to safeguard investment with conditions for the international oil companies, IOCs. NNPC to safeguard investment with conditions for IOC. At the bottom plate of the Nation newspaper, JAMB, NUC, UBEC, orders get acting CEO. Details on page 3. Kanu firm stable in custody. You find all that on page 4. Kinsley.
All right. We'll take a look at the window page of the Punch newspaper. Now, above the nameplate, you have the following headlines. NNPC plans policy guidelines for divesting IOC partners. IOC stands for International Oil Corporations or companies. $2.4 million ransom paid for kidnapped students' release in 2020. That's according to a report. Buni is the acting chair of the APC. Oshibajo and governors begin talks as fear grips APC. Government hospitals grounded as resident doctors begin strike. 2 APCs there beside the nameplate. Senate alleges irregularities in federal government's 1.1 trillion naira investments in UK firm and others. Hush puppy saga. Inspector General appoints ex-Lagos RRS boss to replace Kerry in IRT. Now, RRS boss, that's a Rapid Response Squad. That's an anti-robbery squad. And IRT stands for Intelligence Response Team. Details of that story on page 10. So the headline for the lead story comes with a kicker: rising COVID-19 cases. NASG, that's Economic Summit Group. LCCI, that's Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, fear fresh lockdown. And federal government plans tough actions against third wave. There are 3 riders to that headline. Another lockdown will shrink government revenues and affect private sector and citizens. That's attributed to the NASG. Sanwo-Olu, governor of Lagos, cries out over daily COVID-19 deaths, says red zone travelers abscond. Nigeria takes delivery of 4 million Moderna vaccine doses from the United States. Now, the photographs there on the front page go with the headline: DSS keeps 4 Igboho aides, produces 8, assaults journalists in court. That's on page 8. Lawyers fear assassination plot against Igboho, pursue asylum. PDP youth leader arrested for attacking Buhari and SGF on Facebook, jailed 1 year. Shekarau's 5-month-old daughter dies in Dubai, buried. Yeah, so rest in peace. Shekarau there is a senator and former 2-term governor of Kano State. Community leader puts recovered bodies at 43 in Plateau clashes. Benue demolishes building used to keep commissioner's wife and kidnappers killed. Details on pages 4 and 5. Saraki's EFCC invitation to scuttle his 2023 presidential bid. That's according to Yakasai. That's on page 12. Bayo.
Thank you, Kinsley. Let's start with the alarm bell that has been ringing as regard COVID-19. 32 cases of Delta variant of COVID-19 has been confirmed in Nigeria. This was the brief at the Presidential Steering Committee when the Director General of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control indicated that 80% of tests conducted for Akwa Ibom, that is of the 23 cases, 19 were of the Delta variant, that is 80%. And he says that it's not only in Delta alone. Other 4 states are Oyo, Cross River, Lagos, and the Federal Capital Territory also has the Delta variant. During the first and second wave, apparently somehow, the Director General says someone returned to the state with the Delta variant and started transmitting. And the option is that if something is not done, intensified to contain it, it can be very, very serious. Already Lagos is alarmed because the governor has said that for within 1 week alone, there were 30 deaths from COVID-19 in Lagos. The Secretary to the Government of the Federation, who heads the Presidential Steering Committee, has stressed that stringent measures may now have to be introduced to protect citizens. How long mask wearing will continue is in the hands of Nigerians. The World Health Organization terms Delta variant as the fastest in infection rate. It was surfaced first in India in December 2020 after 3 other variants. Questions have been asked if the AstraZeneca vaccine offer protection against the Delta variant. Recently, the Nigerian Medical Association, Kwara State, said that 2 jabs of COVID-19 for AstraZeneca vaccine were about 92% effective against the Delta variant of the COVID-19 virus. Also, a virologist of the University of Ibadan, Professor Olaleye David, says there is ample evidence that AstraZeneca protects against the Delta variant. From the United States of America, a study published in the Journal of Medicine in the New England has also emphasized that AstraZeneca and Pfizer offer protection against the Delta variant. Meanwhile, Akwa Ibom state government has ordered 1 million new doses of vaccine for the state. Governor Udom Emmanuel yesterday declared, I want to make a strong warning. Whether you believe it or not, COVID-19 is real. Please protect yourselves. We are ordering a new set of vaccines. Don't mind what they are writing on the social media. Take the vaccine. Please let people take it, especially if you are 40 years and above. Nigeria received 2 million of AstraZeneca doses in March 2021. 8 million doses of are also expected by the end of August. Only yesterday, 4 million doses of Moderna were also received from the United States. Chairman, Kwara State Nigeria Medical Association, Dr. Baba Isa, at a press conference in Ilorin declared, I wish to tell you that AstraZeneca vaccine is effective. We should disregard the myths concerning the vaccine. About 500 million doses of the vaccine has gone around the world in 165 countries. So far, yesterday, 444 cases of COVID-19 were recorded in 12 states. So the alarm bell is already ringing for the 3rd wave of COVID-19. Benue Police Command have neutralized 3 suspected kidnappers in the process of rescuing Mrs. Anne Onege. Mrs. Anne Onege, who is the wife of the commissioner in Benue State, and his driver were abducted on Thursday. Governor Samuel Tom, who initially raised alarm that the kidnappers were perhaps Fulani bandits and Fulani kidnappers, has commended the police headquarters, Inspector General of Police, and the Benue State Police Command. He commended them for their professionalism. He immediately ordered the demolition of the house where the kidnapped victims were kept. And he has also indicated that the owner of the property will be prosecuted in accordance with the law of the state. Meanwhile, police in Imo State have also arrested 57-year-old Boniface Okeke for allegedly financing the proscribed IPOB and his armed wing, the Eastern Security Network. Spokesman for the Imo Police Command, CSP Mike Abatam, says that Mr. Okeke is believed to have contributed 10 million funding the proscribed as IPOB. Mr. Okeke was arrested at Obo in Olu local government area in connection with terrorism, an attack on security agents as well as civilians. Upon interrogation, he is reported to have confessed that he funded IPOB and ESN while he was outside the country. 26 other members of the ESN alleged to be responsible for bombing of Njaba and Omoma police stations have also been arrested. A 15-year-old accomplice among them led the police to their hideout in Olu. Arms, including AK-47, magazines and 55 rounds of ammunition, 5 pump-action machine guns and double-barrel guns were seized from them. The other story of concern is the situation of the strike by the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors. It is beginning to take a toll effect on the hospital services as reported by many newspapers. It may be recalled that the Nigeria Association of Resident Doctors declared to continue their indefinite strike on Monday. They said that after 100 days of signing a memorandum of understanding, many of the demands have not been met. They lamented that though the allowances they agreed had been captured in the budget, it has not been disbursed. They also lamented that 10 centers of involving their doctors are being owed 3 to 6 months of salary that have not been paid. Death benefit of members who unfortunately died while fighting COVID-19 also have been captured in the IPs but have not been paid. The only Nigerian Olympian to be honored on the medal podium is Ese Brume. Ese Brume, who won bronze medal in the women's long jump yesterday. Brume leapt a distance of 6.97 meters. Before the Olympics, Brume had actually leapt 7.17 at a field festival in California. That broke Chioma Ajunwa's African women long jump record set 25 years ago. So we have one single lady saving Nigeria from the embarrassment we have had at the Tokyo Olympics.
25 years ago, just like yesterday.
Yes. 10 of our athletes who had promises to perform very well were suspended from the tournament because they didn't take the pre-Olympic tests.
Yeah.
And unfortunately,
congratulations to Ese Brume. I mean, she's been in the news in recent years as a promising athlete, and now she's capped it with a bronze medal, and the fact that she's on the podium is quite significant. So assuming they are all coming back on the same plane, at least she will have a medal draped around her neck. There's also the prospect of another medal in the wrestling event, assuming that event hasn't taken place. Tokyo is 8 hours ahead of us. So we'll see how it goes, but this is not the kind of performance we expected.
No, it's not
the kind of performance. I mean, after 1996 in Atlanta, there was a benchmark that we couldn't just go below. We couldn't just go below that benchmark. The typical excuses that you will hear, oh, we didn't do this, oh, we should have done this. And everybody said, at some point, look, you knew that the Olympics were coming. Yeah. And so if the Olympics had taken place last year, what would you have done?
Preparations for Olympics takes place immediately after
after its end.
Yes,
absolutely. Yes. And preparations do not just include the fact that you are jumping and running. All the other aspects, including your testing, including psychological, physiotherapy, they are all involved. So what we are seeing that 10 of your athletes were disqualified.
And
it's
some
an embarrassment.
of them African record holders.
Yes,
it's an embarrassment.
And these are young men who have burned out hours of training with the expectation of at least making our Olympic history. And they had to demonstrate all over Tokyo.
That's right.
To protest their
as I said yesterday, when something like this happens, heads must roll.
Yes.
If heads do not roll, for another 4 years, or that will be in 2024, you will be hearing even worse stories as to, oh, you know, things happen. No.
Heads never roll.
It never rolled. Well, there are two stories, that one would like to comment on. One is not on the front page, and it's just a by the way remark. The Lagos State House of Assembly is holding a one-day public hearing on a bill for the establishment of a University of Education in Lagos. And the point of interest here is the shorter version of the institution. It's called University of Education Lagos, UNED-LAG. So, does that sound like passing off? If we hear UNILAG and UNED-LAG. Bayo, I'm just wondering, because there should be no scarcity of names, of shorter versions of names, or abbreviated names to get. Yes. Why struggle to get University of Education Lagos? Is there anything wrong, for instance, with saying a co-University of Education?
The National Universities Commission will sort that out, because at the point of registration, they will look at the names and avoid clashes. That is what, at least, one of the criteria.
Well, this is a university. This is a university being set up not by license but by statute. Not by license but by statute. So why don't you get it right? Because if you pass the law, the NUC says no, this clashes with another institution, or is likely to mislead members of the public, get it right from the very beginning. This is public hearing is afoot. What I'm saying is, instead of saying UNED-LAG, and people are wondering whether it's at Akoka or elsewhere, just
imagine when they graduate, and where did you graduate from? UNED-LAG.
UNED-LAG. Oh, you say, okay, that's UNED-LAG, Akoka, you know. And another person will say, just say ECO University of Education, ECOED, and that's simple.
Don't worry, there's only one UNILAG.
There's only one UNILAG, by the way. There's only one UNILAG, by the way.
Have you heard the news? NNPC says that it plans to declare its first dividend, and it's coming 44 years since its inception. The GMD says that within a month or two, NNPC will publish its statement or account for 2020, and NNPC will declare dividends to the Nigerian people.
That's kudos to the GMD, Bella Kyari. I mean, it's been an insider for many years, and of course, it's operated in various parts of the group. And the reforms that have been going on over the years definitely are coming to fruition, and we are seeing what's playing out. So kudos to them. But when the dividends are announced, we'll all be interested. Who are the shareholders? Who are the shareholders? So if you say that all Nigerians are shareholders,
all Nigerians.
So how do we get the GMD, Melekere, just be careful so that people don't come knocking at your door.
For their cocoa.
Oh yes, or that of your NNPC. I'm sure you're going to have a crowd there when Nigerians massive from all locations say, look, we want our dividend from this largesse that you have declared.
Yes, Bayo, briefly before we go, stringent COVID-19 measures likely?
It has to be, because with Delta here now, we are in the danger if we go about lackadaisical about our protective measures. Most of the non-pharmaceutical measures have been abandoned. Anywhere you go, you scarcely see many people wearing masks. So when you wear masks, you look like a masquerade among other citizens. So we must go back to the non-pharmaceutical measures. And this probably will have to be enforced by task forces, because it is allowed to forcibly protect people against health hazards.
That's right, no question about that. Yeah, I mean, we won't have enough time to discuss this. Why is it that law enforcement officers always assault journalists at the venue of coverage? Says DSS assault journalists in court. If you do not wish, I mean, it is not for you as DSS to say, don't come into the courtroom. Let that be clear. It is not for the DSS, because the DSS is not the one holding court. There is a presiding judge who would say, look, there should be no media coverage, this trial is in camera or otherwise, and no journalist would then say, look, I want to be in breach of the order given by the judge. Or if you want any prior arrangement by which you want to conceal certain things, you could discuss this with the media. It is not when journalists get to the venue, you begin to assault them. Incidents like this get recorded, and there are many journalist associations all around the world, the media associations, and they would take this,
and
as
give the Nigeria a bad name.
Precisely,
Yes.
give Nigeria a bad name.
Yes.
Do you know what annoys me? If a CNN reporter was there, he would have been in the court. They would have allowed the CNN.
You see,
well, cameras are not allowed, into the courtroom when proceedings are going on in our court.
Yes.
No, cameras are not allowed.
They are not allowed.
They are not,
no.
But the point is, whether you are a local or a foreign correspondent, to the extent that the judge has not issued a directive saying that this trial will be in camera, why restrain journalists from covering the event? And even if you want to restrain them, is it by assaulting them?
there are instances where some trial at the behest of the prosecutor or at the behest of the court, you say you want to exclude journalists, but that should not be used by means of assault to assault journalists who are there to perform their constitutional duties.
On that note, Bayo, we're running out of time. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you too.
We'll take a break now. When we return, our conversation will begin. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and to begin our conversation, let's take this background report by Ekene Njului.
Since inception, the Nigerian society has been faced with challenges of corruption, despite numerous legislative and administrative efforts by various administrations towards combating this menace. These efforts have seen the government establish various anti-corruption institutions like the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission (ICPC), Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC), Code of Conduct Bureau (CCB), and the Bureau of Public Procurement. Despite these efforts, Nigeria has continued to perform poorly on the Global Corruption Perception Index. The country's poor corruption perception index is further accompanied by high level of insecurity across the country. This is also in spite of various strategies and operations launched by the federal government and law enforcement agencies to arrest cases of banditry, terrorism, kidnapping, and farmers-herders clashes. Some social analysts have suggested for reforms in the fight against corruption and insecurity, while others are of the view that the problem lies with the implementation of existing laws and policies. Issues of complicity by law enforcement agents have also been a national concern, as this has been attributed as a major factor militating against efforts towards fighting corruption and insecurity. Is effective law enforcement achievable in Nigeria? How passionate are enforcement agents towards achieving this? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will be speaking to issues around law enforcement reforms in Nigeria in a moment.
All right. Thank you very much, Ekene Njului, for that background report. But just a slight correction. Nigeria has not been battling with corruption since the inception of the society. Let's just be clear about that. Now we have guests with us to discuss the issue, which is on law enforcement reforms. In the studio here is a regular guest. In fact, all our guests are regulars on Good Morning Nigeria. Let's welcome retired Assistant Inspector General of Police, Felix Obadu, who is also a legal practitioner. Pleasure to have you with us again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay. And then also joining us from our Kaduna Network Center, Honorable Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali is a former member of the Kaduna State House of Assembly and a security expert. Muhammad Ali, we are delighted to welcome you back to Good Morning Nigeria. And once again, please do accept our condolences on the loss of your son some weeks ago.
Thank you, Mr. Kingsley, and good morning, Nigerians.
And also joining us via Zoom is Professor Etanibi Alemika, Professor of Criminology and member, Presidential Advisory Committee on Anti-Corruption, PACAC. Good to have you join us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right, gentlemen, once again, our pleasure to have you join us. I mean, law enforcement reforms is a very broad subject matter. There's no question about that, but there are critical issues to look at with regard to law enforcement. I mean, in light of recent developments and what we actually need to do to ensure that we become more of a law and order society. Beginning with AIG Felix Obaudu, what, in your opinion, are some of those critical challenges that law enforcement continues to present to us today?
Well, thank you very much. We've had the issue of gross incompetence. That's how I want to put it. Gross incompetence on the part of a good number of the law enforcement operatives. And that has been a major obstacle in very effective, result-oriented law enforcement. If you start with, let's start with the Nigerian Police Force, where I served for 35 years before I retired. Regrettably, training and retraining of officers has not been taken seriously. It's not been given the due attention it deserves. And if you are not adequately trained, like we say it in law, you cannot give what you don't have. So I think that is a major challenge, the issue of proper training to make them professionally competent. Again, sadly enough, if you visit most, if not all, of the police training institutions that I know of in this country, it's a huge embarrassment. Huge embarrassment. They lack a lot of facilities. Nothing to write home about. Then before you start talking about the personnel, the instructors, the lecturers, those that will train these officers who will serve, who will perform as law enforcement officers. It's not just there. We still find in the service today a good number of officers who cannot read, who cannot write. That is the gospel truth. And to a large extent, all of these have hindered their performance. Even for those that are properly trained, well educated, professionally competent, again, the other dimension is inadequacy of the empowerment. Tools to work with. Tools to work with. The empowerment is not there. And don't forget that we are no longer in an analog regime. Everything's gone digital and a lot of ICT and all of that. They don't have a database, so the records are not even very credible, they're not reliable. So we're merely dancing in circles. So a lot of things need to be addressed. Of course, coupled with the fact that a lot of people will say, oh, well, security agents are grossly underfunded. Yes, but again, having said that, the question is, what have they been able to do with the allocations they are given on a yearly basis from the budget? If we see what we've done with the money you give, say yes. And it's equivalent to the amount of money we're given. That's understandable. But when there's not to show for what the little you've even been given, and they're crying for more allocation, what is the guarantee that when you get more money, it will not be misapplied and all of that? So these are the challenges that have made most of this service not be able to live up to their expectation, their responsibilities. And that's why we've had overwhelming security challenges in this country. Then, of course, lastly, let me also say to that, with a population of over 200 million people, the number of security operatives we have in this country, in all the security agencies, the number is grossly inadequate. Don't forget, the United Nations ratio given is 1 police officer to 400 citizens. But the ratio is far, far less than that. So one, we need to empower them. We need to increase the number. We need to train them properly. And lastly, they need to be adequately motivated. That's what I've always talked about. We're in a country where some people, I don't want to mention names yet, some people are doing so little and they earn so much. Some others are doing so much and they are earning so little.
That's right.
And some are putting their lives on the line. It's so sad. It's just lately that some of the state governors have started showing some sympathy towards the widows of slain police officers. If not in the past, if a police officer gets killed, the wife, the children, are left on their own. And you can imagine all of that. So these are some of the issues that really, really have to address.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll get back to you on the these issues you've raised. Let's now join Muhammad Ali, Honorable Muhammad Ali, in our Kaduna studio. You've listened to his opening comment. Gross incompetence, inadequate funding. It keeps going on and on. Let's have your view on the state of law enforcement in Nigeria.
To say the least, the state of law enforcement in Nigeria is today in a very sorry state, courtesy of what AIG said, gross incompetence. And this incompetence is brought about as a result of the cash and carry manner we exhibit during recruitment. Today, in all the services, not just the police force, in all the services, people pay money in order to get recruited. And this is a very, very negative aspect of the entire program, because if we have to monetize the process of recruiting our law enforcement officers, then certainly we are in for a shocker, because in between we'll end up recruiting criminals who will have a very good cover serving under the agency that is supposed to serve as a security agent. He has that legal cover to further perpetrate his criminal tendencies. And like the AIG rightly said, we need reforms. These reforms will include legal reforms, because some of the laws, particularly in using the Nigerian police, some of them are archaic, so we need to look at those laws and review them. There is also a need for institutional reform. There is a need for internal oversight reform. There is a need for welfare and salary reform. There is also the need for training and recruitment reform. Like the IIG rightly said, most of our training colleges are a very sorry sight. And again, the training colleges are looked upon as dumping grounds. Excellent officers are not allowed or are not sent out there, or even if they are sent out to the training colleges, because they may get forgotten, and even their juniors may get promoted over and above them, so they refuse to go. So we have to add some incentives to whoever is going into the training college as an instructor, so that will be like a bite to attract smart brains that will actually bring up good intelligence officers in the making. But where we just allow all manner of people to be instructors in our training colleges, then we'll continue to produce bad officers and men who, at the slightest impulse, will be ready to compromise the ethics of the job in order to salvage their own personal ambition or needs. So this is why I think the issue of reform should be taken seriously. Nigeria and Nigerians are very able people, but there is a lot that needs to be done in order to encourage all our security agencies, not just the police. There are a lot of problems, and efforts have to be made to ensure that people who go around collecting money when it is time for recruitment, something needs to be done, and quickly too, because listeners may remember sometimes in the 80s when the now dead Anini, who was a kingpin of a gang robbery syndicate, how did he find himself to get recruited and join the police and even rose to the rank of a DSP? So these are some of the things. Till tomorrow, people are collecting money in order to make way for applicants to join either the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, or the police, or the DSS, or the civil defense. People may even put in calls to you, calling you that there is vacancy in the custom. Can you please pay 150 or 200,000 to be recruited? What manner of thing is that? I think we have to start punishing people who are caught in these acts, so that we'll have our acts straight. Otherwise, we'll continue to have problems militating against the issue of security in this country.
All right, Muhammad Ali, thank you very much there for your opening comments. Let's bring in Professor Etanibi Alemika. Professor Alemika, while we're still on the issue of what challenges law enforcement present today, let's get your own take on this. All right.
Yes, we seem to have lost.
Yes, that's right. That's okay. Okay, now back to the studios with AIG Felix Obaudu. I mean, both yourself and Muhammad Ali, you have raised very pertinent issues, and these are matters that are actually fundamental to law enforcement. But let's just take a look at, say, training, for instance. Why is it that everybody recognizes the value of education? Everybody realizes, because education is a lifelong process. But on the day you are born, that is the day you start to learn, until the day the individual dies, provided there are no congenital issues or the person doesn't come down with grave health challenges. You continue to, even in those grave circumstances, you are learning to adapt. So why is it that for law enforcement agencies, training doesn't have the pride of place? I've been listening to Muhammad Ali and your good self. Instructors who are sent to training institutions are sent there as though they were being posted to Siberia, that is a dumping ground. What informs that mentality?
Thank you so much. Posting, like I always say, let me restrict myself to my own constituency, the police. Postings to training institutions, the police, some officers, a lot of them view it as punitive. And so, of course, someone with that kind of mindset, when he gets to training institution, he has nothing to offer. But if you take other services, like the military, for instance, they don't joke with training at all. You know, they don't. And that's why I find that a good number of the officers are very well educated and professionally competent. But that aside, let me just digress a little bit. Let us not also forget the fact that when police officers are deployed out of this country on peacekeeping missions, they excel out there. Maybe that's an issue we are going to address some other time. Why do Nigerian police officers excel outside and are judge failures back home?
No, is that not? But we'll yes. take it along, because so that we have this comparative idea.
Let me just talk about this. Now, this is the issue. Just a few days back, one of my very close friends came to me to say that the child who works here in Abuja, he works in one of the ministries. In the department where he was initially, some years back, there were a lot of perquisites, things coming by the side. But somewhere along the line, I don't know what happened. Probably steps did something wrong and all of that. He was redeployed to where he is now. And my friend was saying, look, here, can you help us? Where my son is now, he lives only on his salary alone. And that's the ministry.
Meaning?
Yes. Only the salary. That's what sustains him. From there, he pays his rent, he does the blah, blah, and all of that. So it is the same issue with some of these training institutions we're talking about now. But like when the police officer is out there, maybe it's in a divisional crime branch, it's in a CID, it's in operations, it's in one unit or the other. He interacts with members of the public, one thing or the other. He gets some little things here and there to complement the salary. So these are the issues. Now to further address the issue, when I realized, when I retired, I did a proposal to the IG then. I can't remember what the IG was then. And the proposal was about deploying retired officers who are still mentally and physically fit as instructors in training institutions. And I said, all you need to do, build some decent accommodation, just one room self-contained, water, light, and all of that. The officers will go there, deliver, help to train the officers, and they go back. So they're bringing 7 officers who come and come over where I'm just here suffering, nothing. But as at that time, they actually gave me the assurance that, oh, thank you very much, and this is a brilliant idea. We're going to implement it. But just nothing has been done till this moment. But because of this issue, I think it's something I'm going to revive again, reactivate, so that we can see how it can come to play. So that's just the problem. Posting to training institutions is seen as being punitive because there is nothing coming from the side. That is the truth. In every other service, not just police alone, if you're in a training institution, it's just you and your salary alone. If you're outside, you get some other perquisite that come because you're interacting with members of the public and all of that. So that's the issue. That's why people see it as being punitive, you know.
Well, AIG Obuadu, thank you very much. I mean, the candor in the conversation is to be appreciated.
Yes.
But it is this interaction with members of the public and the perks that come with it that some would say gives the foundation for
Corruption.
petty corruption.
Yes.
Not grand corruption, petty corruption, and which is a major challenge that we face. Now we understand that Professor Etanibi Alemika is rejoined us via Zoom. Professor Alemika, well, maybe we just get your opening statement on what the issues are with efficient law enforcement in Nigeria. The other two guests have taken a panoramic sweep of the matters.
Thank you, Kingsley. I think talking about law enforcement agencies, we should classify them into 2 broad categories. The first are those that are primarily policing law enforcement agencies, like the police, civil defense, road safety corps, and those that are regulatory, like customs, immigration, and similar organizations. Unfortunately, both of them are at present, structured operational performance below expectations. But the causes of these below expectation has a structural societal dimension as well as organizational dimension. So talking about reform, it means that we have 2 levels of reform. First, at the societal level, no police agency or law enforcement agency can rise above its environment or society. So a lot of the problem of the police are also manifested right from the governance level to community levels. Problem of lack of patriotism, lack of adherence to disciplined behavior, lack of capacity even to empathize. So we must deal with those ones at the level of societal orientation. But at the level of the law enforcement agencies, we're dealing with first and foremost resource, capability. And the constraint of capability can be classified in terms of properly and professionally trained personnel. And I think a lot of both speakers have spoken to this. Challenge from level of recruitment right through to deployment and the problem associated with it. And I think another problem is in fact problem of orientation. Law enforcement across the world are embracing the idea that first and foremost they are peacemakers rather than law enforcers. It is when peacemaking fails that we go into law enforcement. But again, another constraint is our laws. When we go to some of our laws, it reorients our police actually to enforce rather than to regulate, rather than to enlighten, rather than educate. And again, this put them at cross purpose with the society. So there is a lot about orientation. But I think we also need to deal with adequacy and then the mix. Very often you hear about personnel, personnel, personnel. We know that more personnel.
We seem to have lost him there. Let's now join Muhammad Ali in our Kaduna studio. You've talked about institutional oversight, welfare, salary, recruitment, and training reforms in our law enforcement agencies. One thing I would like to ask you, do we need a benchmark for employment or recruitment into our law enforcement?
Yes, we need to have a benchmark to guide, to serve as a guide as to who gets recruited and who does not. At present, the process of recruitment into the services is abused because a senator or a member of the House of Reps will sit in his office and make up a list of people from his constituency and just send, and they get recruited, as against those who are first very interested and even qualified. Some of these people who come to the offices of senators or members of the House of Reps hardly even write the exams, and at times even if they do, they fail, yet they get themselves into it. So since they have come in through the window, we don't expect them to actually perform, and this is why I would want to actually concur with the professor who talks about the issue of adequacy, because by the time people cannot even pass entrance exams and they still get recruited, then certainly you are encouraging inadequacy in terms of personnel performance. So we need to do something about that. Recruitment must be purely on merit, not who is backing you or where you come from. Let it be purely on merit, because these are the people that are going to serve this nation. They are frontline service personnel, so they must really have something up in their head, not just anybody. So this has to be looked into, and seriously too, because if people are just employed because their names or list comes from a sitting senator or a governor, I think we'll continue to have problems. So in order to avoid that, let the recruitment be strictly on merit, and also taking into consideration the federal character principle. If we abide by this, I think gradually but steadily we'll be able to overcome some of these teaching problems that are trying to tie us down.
All right, thank you very much, Muhammad Ali. Professor Etanibi Alemika, we're back to you again via Zoom. Perhaps you want to continue from where we lost you.
Yes, I was just saying that the reform that are required will have to do with question of adequacy of personnel, a appropriate mix between personnel and technology, and then of course the rules themselves need to be reformed. The laws, the rules that guide the operations need to be reformed. We also need to do a lot in terms of the condition of service, in terms of not just at the level of recruitment and training. There must be a lot of retraining. There must be a lot of accountability on the part of the police and the agencies that have been established to oversight them. They must have adequate knowledge. But all along, we're talking about capability, we're talking about capacity. A lot needs to be done for the law enforcement agencies broadly, but a lot needs to be done within the society itself in terms of attitude to law, and then, of course, the quality of law. Sometimes it's difficult for them to enforce the law because of the way the law itself is couched. And increasingly, we are beginning to see subsidiary legislation that gives so much power of corruption to the police. I've been in Abuja for a couple of months, And what I'm hearing now is that when you are arrested by the traffic police and all the three of them, road safety, what they first do is to harass you with the fact that you are going to go for psychiatric examination, your car will be seized, and they harass you that you now have to part with money. No decent country does this. What you want to do is, if they are, give them ticket, let them go and pay. Why do you subject somebody for psychiatric when he hasn't done anything like that? So our rules are actually creating opportunity to make our law enforcement agencies anti-people and worse in terms of their, performance. So we need a lot of rules that can enhance citizens' compliance with behavior, not to induce them to greater corruption. So there are a lot that needs to be done, but let's not just focus on the institutions themselves. We need to focus on the quality of governance in the society broadly. We need to see, as the former speaker said, this whole question of quota reserved for certain kinds of people. And that is quota in recruitment. There is also, what if you like, a quota in operational decision making, where people can call this operation almost to a stop or to commence on the basis of their position in society. So I think this reform needs to be societal wide, and it needs to be cross-cutting in terms of sectors and agencies.
All right, Professor Alemika, we still want to stay with you. One of the issues that all three guests have raised, that's including yourself, has to do with training. And there was a suggestion by retired AIG Felix Ogbaudu that, look, to the extent that training institutions for the police, with which is most familiar, that those training institutions are seen as a dumping ground or some hardship posting, and that it might be helpful if you recruited retired officers who, of course, have the competence to deliver, and then also have the aptitude for training. Is this something that you would want to comment on?
Yes, thanks, Kingsley. I think AIG Ogbadu is on point. I think we should begin to look at training institutions that comprises of the following. People who are recruited directly to those institutions, not first as operation people who make their career teaching in training institutions. That will be a category. Another category will come from the service to bring in day-to-day experience. And day-to-day experience, of course, will benefit from people who either prematurely retired on, maybe they are just 55 and then they put in 35 years of service. The service can benefit. So we can actually have three categories of people who are academically qualified to teach in those institutions. And then another group will be those who are still in service, who are also deployed to those institutions, and retired officers that, of course, have the necessary knowledge and also can be in that institution. But none of this will happen if you do not deal with the quality of condition of learning, condition of teaching, and the welfare in those institutions. Without that, there will be challenge. For example, I was talked to the commandant of Police Staff College in Jos. There was a time that about 40 officers were posted to the place. Only 4 reported. All the other, even before reporting, had sought for favor not to go to that college. Because, as you said, they not see as a dumping ground, they saw it as a punishment ground. So we need to upgrade. We need to learn from the military. Whatever the military is doing, I think other law enforcement agencies should think about it. What they do first and foremost is, when you are one of their best graduating students, you are targeted to go back to training institution. So on the basis of that, even when they go to training institution, they already are confirmed with this idea that we are the best. When they get there, the environment is improved above what normally may have happened in their regular offices. So again, they find an environment that is conducive with the notion that they are the best. Because if you say they are the best and you put them in a situation which is not comparable with their offices, they will still not perform. So I think these are the two things the other services, not just the police. Apart from the military, the condition we describe is the same across the law enforcement agencies. I have relationship with almost all of them. So that's the attitude. So we need to do those things, have those staff composition that will offer stability and diversity in training.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's now come back to the studio where Mr. Felix Ogbadu is waiting. He has talked about training with training and training. In comparison to the military, the Air Force and the Army, where when you join them, you're a secondary school leaver. Apart from training, they encourage you to go back to school, to a higher institution, so that you can improve yourself. Is that being done in the police while we're there, and is it now being done? Are there reforms to educate our police personnel?
Well, in the past, police officers were not discouraged from going to acquire higher educational qualifications. And as at that time, if you had, like when I joined the force in 1976 after my youth service, so my classmates were rank and file members. I think one was an inspector, the other was a corporal or so, but they were graduates. Two of them graduated from University of Ibadan, and they joined us. Now, currently, I'm sure you are very much aware of this. The police academy in Wudil in Kano, it's like the NTA in Kaduna. You get passed out as a police officer and as a graduate. So at the officer cadre, you have a degree from a police institution. Unlike in the past when only graduates, cadre TSPs were recruited from outside. Now we have graduates being churned out from the police academy in Wudil. So that one is, to a very large extent, is enhancing the quality of the officers, the ones we call the SPO, Superior Police Officers, you know. But for the junior ones, like I said, they're allowed to go and maybe go to read, do a degree program, part-time or full-time, all of that. When they apply, they're given permission to do that. So to realize that is enhancing their performance too. But again...
on a scale of 1 to 10,
yes.
Give me a scale of people who have gone back to school, improved themselves, and are back in the
No.
Let's have a scale.
Let us not go near that, because the figure is grossly... it's so little, it's so small, it's so small. Like I said, most of these guys who came in as constables, that's starting from the bottom, the lowest rank, very few of them still have that burning desire to go to improve on their educational background and all of that, you know. So those that have graduated from that level, they are very, very few. The number is is highly insignificant, you know.
And they're the people who relate directly with the society,
the public, that's right.
The public
Like
itself.
the main foot soldiers.
Which is why training and retraining
at that level,
yes,
at that level must be re-emphasized, you know.
There's no question about it, Jumai. I mean, when you come across officers who have undergone good training and have also embarked upon self-improvement, their confidence is infectious.
Oh, you see it in them.
If not intimidating. I mean, the fact that AIG Ogbadu is confident to sit with us in the studios from time to time, discussing a broad range of issues without a prior questionnaire sent to him, is proof of that. I mean, you come up, there are not, of course, some of your colleagues also have had doctorates, you know, in their various disciplines, which brings back the whole issue of training and retraining, and of course the competence in dealing with issues. I just want us to table this point, and I hope the other two guests will also have the opportunity of responding to this. Look, in itemizing or articulating the challenges facing law enforcement in our country, or rather, let's say peacemaking, as Professor Alemika was suggesting by indirection, why is it that there has been no internal recognition of these challenges and how, therefore, to deal with them? I'm asking this question because if we say that training is valuable, why is it that managers of the law enforcement agencies don't then proceed to actually ensure that training is valuable? And if we complain about the abuse of recruitment, cash for recruitment, or cash for deployment to certain positions, and we know that this has a negative impact on overall performance, why is there no internal mechanism to say, look, gentlemen, let's examine ourselves. This is not helping us. It's not helping us achieve our key performance indicators. We have to take a step back, like an organization, like, let's say, a private entity, and then how to achieve results.
Prof raised an issue, mentioned something which really excited me. The issue of competence. The issue of competence, merit. You see, like I used to say, if, for instance, we in this country have a problem with our lights, power situation, and if all those that will guarantee this power for us 24/7, if they're all the indigenous of Zamfara State, so be it. Based on merit, based on competence. It doesn't matter. Our interest is that this thing is there 24/7.
Fix it.
But the moment you keep on saying, oh, this one from there, that's it. You bring on a team, you want to do a relay race, somebody comes, is like this, is deformed, and the same of the part of, you can never win. You can never win. And that's one of the issues we're having. You keep on having square pegs in round holes.
Yes.
That is a major problem. One of the major problems we have in this country. If we have the political will to do the needful at all times, we won't be where we are today. Let us emphasize competence. Go and write an exam. All of you, go and write the exam. All those that scored maybe 80 and above, it doesn't matter where you come from. Go and do this job there. The moment you say, no, they cannot all come from that place, you go deep down the line and bring in somebody who scored 15%.
Because you want to fill the quota
That's
system.
right, yes. That is my biggest quarrel with quota system, federal character, and all of that. Again, another dimension to it is this. If you want to talk about quota system, even federal character, you will find out that it is not the very best you are taking from every state. If, for instance, you say you write an exam, and the very best in every state are those that are chosen, we'll still be making a lot of progress. But like somebody raised the issue,
Yeah, Muhammad Ali.
if you don't have that political connection, you're not linked up with somebody who's witty and all of that who will push, you can't make it. That's why I find out that some of the applicants who did so well, they lose out because they have no connection. They know nobody in the National Assembly. They don't have any political bigwig who can push. Rather, somebody that's down below who will be picked up because his relation, his father's brother, and all of that, is a minister who holds one key political appointment, and he secures the appointment. That's where we are. So it is issue of emphasizing competence, excellence. When Obama was to contest for the position of president in the U.S. many years back, I was in the U.S. And I was discussing with my friends in the U.S. I said, look, I'm told these guys, the paternal is from Kenya, maternal is from somewhere in Asia and all of that. He's not an American. What is it? Someone told me, say, Felix, we don't bloody care where the president comes from. America is facing a lot of challenges. It is the man who can provide solutions to our problems that want to be president. It doesn't matter where he comes from. That is what we should be looking forward to in this country.
Why is it difficult for us to emphasize merit and competence, and therefore say those who have come in meritoriously have a task, go ahead and fix the task, like dealing with the challenges that we just talked about in law enforcement agencies? My question is going to Muhammad Ali.
Having it difficult to insist on merit because people that benefit from subservience will always want to have their way, whether good or bad. So for that, I think what AIG rightly said, we should insist. If the entire team that will fix our problem in this nation comes from one particular local government, so be it. The problem, what we need is to solve our problems and to be where we are supposed to be. For example, the police as it is today, most cases in the courts, we have police prosecutors. Some of these police prosecutors, some of them are just fresh from secondary school, they joined the police college, they graduated, and they are sent to the CID or issues like that, and they become prosecutors. There is no any other further training they are subjected to. And this is why most at times, some criminal cases are normally lost because of the quality of evidence presented by the prosecuting police officer. So I would want to see a situation where henceforth recruitment into the constabulary level should begin from people who have either diploma or NCE, at least to raise the entry level. So that will enhance performance, and that will bring about the merit we are talking about. Because if we talk about secondary school today, you will be shocked to find out that there are a lot of results in circulation today. You see people having 5 A's in one sitting. This is, any student of history knows that it is close to an impossibility for a person to make 3 A's or 5 A's in one sitting at a go. So this has to do with our educational system too. Something has to be done about that. People pay money. We have these places they call magic centers. If you go, even if it is a kindergarten that you pay for, provided you pay the right price, just go and wait. As soon as the results are out, he or she will get whatever you paid for. So this has to also be looked at. So this is a challenge also to our education administrators. The Ministry of Education of all the states and the Federal Ministry of Education needs to sit up to ensure that exams and also people in WAEC and NECO offices have to be checked and checked time and again, because that is where the problems are emanates from. Until we stop selling results, people should earn what they actually write for. But where people are only apportion results based on what they pay, then the problem in all the institutions, not only in the security institutions, but also other service institutions across the country will continue to have it. Because even in the ministries today, a COPA came, she wants to write for excuse duty. She was asked to go and write an application seeking 2 days off. She could not write it. She was asking the executive officer to give her a draft so that she copy. How did she graduate in the first place? So this is a national problem. So I think what we need is a sort of national reorientation, so that we take care of most of these teething problems that are pulling us down as a nation.
Say, out of all the reforms that this discussion is talking about and advocating for, do you think the recruitment reform should be paramount and above the others?
Should be paramount, because it is the absence of that is making or putting our security agencies, in spite of their expertise and patience, they are having the greatest challenge in the last 7 months or thereabout, particularly on the issue of banditry and the economy of violence, which particularly we here in Kaduna are facing today. So the issue of reform within the recruitment cycle is paramount and must be pursued with vigor, so that we'll be able to make a difference in the shortest possible time.
All right, thank you very much, Muhammad Ali, there for your viewpoint. Professor Echanibia Alemika, while we're still on this subject matter, that is to say that, yes, I mean, the various law enforcement agencies, they have their organizational setup. There are the managers of those entities. We know that there are problems, of course, with competence in some cases. the abuse of quota. But what is it that they can do to engineer reform from within? Because these are identifiable challenges. I mean, the point has been raised. I think A.I. Jogbado was the one that first threw that up. Say, look, year in, year out, there are budgetary allocations to these law enforcement agencies. What is the evidence of what they have done with the money? I mean, it was so embarrassing, for instance, that it took President Goodluck Jonathan, while he was on his way to the airport, to see the rotten state of the police college at Ikeja. And that's on the prime location, is GRA in Ikeja, Lagos. You go around all kinds of police barracks, they are an eyesore. I mean, you won't put anybody in any of those places. So why, and then you talk about training, and people are not getting adequate training, and your field officers are coming back, whether regulatory or policing functions, as you categorize Professor Alemika. And yet, these are, how do you deal with such person? If you were a CEO of an organization, would you ask yourself, say, look, gentlemen, let's proceed on the retreat and see how we can do some work from within?
Yeah, thanks so much. I think the police or other law enforcement agencies need to recognize that their strength lies in the street police officer, the constable, the corporal, the sergeant, and a lot of greater emphasis should be placed on not just training, but the orientation and welfare of officers at this level. You know, when these foreign organizations come about, for example, perception of corruption, when you challenge them, they said, well, we've not seen a difference in retail corruption in these people, you know, a range of officers on the street, whether police or any other, you know, whether LASMA or road safety or, you know. So basically, the strength of law enforcement officers are those on the street policemen. The street policemen. So a lot needs to be done at that level to improve their welfare, their training. But internally, yes, a lot of money going to the police. But the question starts from budgeting. A lot of law enforcement agencies have this single line budgeting. And when it comes, the tendency is to spend it at the discretion of the chief executive because they are not appropriately disaggregated by the different components of expenditure. So I think a lot need more to be done. If they do that, also I hope it will help in the appropriation through the legislature. These are some of the reforms that also need to be done in capacity building. There is also need for greater oversight of the relationship, let's take police again, between the activities of the Ministry of Police Affairs and actual need of the police. And of course, we added trust funds to it now. These areas, you know, making sure that expenditure actually reflect the need of the police and not the need of Ministry of Police Affairs or the police trust fund. This is another area that we need to be very careful. Again, another area is, why is it so difficult for us, for example, to recruit constable on annual basis within the budget? On the average, the police, you know, disengages not less than maybe 10,000 per annum. 4 years you don't recruit, you've lost 40,000 non-commissioned officers. Then you are given permission to recruit 8,000. You are 32,000 short of where you were 4 years ago. My recommendation again, which I've mentioned to many of the, you know, powerful people in this country who are supposed to do this, can't we have annual recruitment embedded in annual budget of every law enforcement agencies? This can be done by simply looking at outflow on each year and then find the average. If we do that, this training lasts at most 9 months. That means every year we can have people recruited in and they complete their training, and of course they are deployed to the various areas. These are some of the, you know, internal reform that we need to encourage.
More recruitment so that we can replace those that have retired or been dismissed. We'll take a break right now. When we return, our conversation will continue. Don't go away.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. All our three guests are still with us. Professor Etanibi Alemika via Zoom, Mohammed Ali with us from our Kaduna Network Center, and here in the Abuja studios, retired AIG Felix Obaldo, who is also a lawyer. Gentlemen, there's one aspect that we also need to talk about in terms of law enforcement. Of course, we've dealt with the challenges of law enforcement, and you have also made your prescriptions as to what is required in terms of reform. But while we still have the law enforcement agencies that we have today, whether policing or regulatory, those two broad categories stipulated or outlined by Professor Etanibi Alemika, there's one issue that members of the public continue to deal with, and the consequences of this issue, some have argued, of course those consequences are manifest in the fact that we appear not to be able to get on top of criminal activities. And that is the frequent allegation of some law enforcement officers compromising their position, colluding with those whom they are supposed to be chasing and bringing to justice. And the fact that some law enforcement officers sometimes get to be recruited for personal ends.
Well, that takes us back to the issue we've been emphasizing all along. Recruitment of officers or persons who have impeccable character, who are responsible and can undertake to perform the duties for which they've been employed. Because a law enforcement officer who colludes or conspires with criminals is a criminal himself, a criminal in uniform. And that again is another lacuna in the recruitment process. In the recruitment process. And I also want to recommend too that any officer found culpable in this regard, the sanction, the punishment should be very, very severe and sufficiently deterrent. That's the only way to curb, to reduce some of these things. Let me give you an instance. The issue of kidnapping. Peter Obi, when he was governor of Anambra State, there was an approach adopted, which the governor of Benue State had just copied now. When Obi was governor of Anambra State, if a kidnapped victim is traced to your house, once the person is rescued, that building is brought down, demolished. And when he started enforcing that, he was personally there. Obi will be there standing, looking at demolition. And to a large extent, that one curbed the issue of kidnapping in Anambra State. And that takes me back to one of the major issues worrying us in this country. Absence of deterrence. Absence of deterrence fuels impunity. People can do a lot of things and get away with them. Nothing happens to them. So we really need to look deeply into the recruitment process to make sure that criminals are not brought into the system. And there should be a monitoring system put in place. Anybody displaying all those signs should be curbed, and all sorts of things should be nipped in the bud timeously and the person thrown out of the service. Because it's very embarrassing for somebody, a police officer, for instance, or a soldier, getting involved with criminals. It's just like when we talk about corruption, and a policeman is openly and shamelessly demanding for money, and they are supposed to be fighting corruption. I know corruption is a crime. You know, there was this cartoon I saw somewhere. It said, they wrote on the wall, said, do not urinate here. If you urinate here, the fine is 500 naira. A policeman caught somebody urinating there and said, look at this. The guy now gave him 1,000 naira. And the guy asked for his 500 naira change. He said, no, you urinate the second time.
That's a good joke.
Yeah. So you urinate the second time.
But don't you think...
And the 1,000 naira unreceipted.
Yes.
Don't you
You
think
know, so is,
we lack in mental and psychological evaluation with law enforcement? Telling them what is right, knowing what is right. you begin to ask the question, what would lead a law enforcement officer to compromise his stand? What are the reasons?
Look, let me tell you very frankly. A good number of these guys who are culpable, it's not that they don't know that what they are doing is criminal and highly despicable. They know. It's just like somebody who's going to kill somebody, going to steal money, going to commit an offense or the other. He knows that what he or she is going into is criminal. So it has to do with the personality involved, the person himself, the mindset. He knows what he's doing is wrong. It's criminal. That's why I'm saying that the recruitment process has to be revisited and make sure criminals are not brought into the system. And when you've been recruited and you display any of those symptoms, any of those signs, it should be timelessly attacked and dealt with. That's the way to go about it. And lastly, before I round up, although this might not be directly related to what we are saying, one of our biggest challenges is that, and the truth of the matter, like I want to put it too, is that our population as a nation, if it's not exploding already, it's exploding. I read somewhere where they said that by 2050, our population will have doubled. When I was in 200 million. That by 2050, population will have risen to 400 million. A lot of people have submitted the idea of bringing in family planning and things like that. Some don't want to take that seriously. Some have even given some religious dimension. I heard somebody say, oh, that's un-Islamic, or a Muslim saying that. But if we are not careful, we are sitting on a keg of gunpowder, time bomb.
Okay.
So we really need to work seriously on that. Okay. Population explosion is a big challenge for us.
Thank you. Yes. Professor Etanibi Alemika, if you are there, I would like you to also make a comment on this in terms of one of the issues that we are having with law enforcement, that some law enforcement officers, whether in the policing or in the regulatory categories, tend to compromise. And now they begin to hunt with the hares, and then, of course, get into all kinds of things, collusion. There are allegations of some of them being gun runners for criminal gangs, and others who, who are praised for the quality of job they are doing. It gets into their head, and they, of course, now begin to run a regime of their own.
Thank you. There is this adage or this phrase, who polices the police? Or is phrased another way, who guard the guardians? A major problem across the law enforcement agencies is the absence of efficient professional human resources management. Whether from the problem of recruitment that we've mentioned right through to criminal behavior of officers, these are challenges of human resources management. Where you have a professional human resource management section, there is what is called not just performance indicator and management. There is also integrity, integrity management. So you find within the organizations, there are units that are responsible. The police, for example, had some of these ones before. Even the IG monitor escort, for example, IG monitoring team. These were supposed to deal with integrity within the system. But of course, they are not systematic, they are not professionally deployed, and therefore it's difficult to manage. So what we actually need to do is to emphasize integrity and performance management. Integrity in terms of the quality of character, and performance in terms of competence. And then you must set those standards of behavior and performance, establish a unit within the law enforcement agencies as inspectorate division. Well, the inspectorate divisions are there in name, or sometimes they do something different. An efficient inspectorate unit that is designed to monitor, evaluate, and enforce standards of integrity and performance. So these are the challenges in the system. So somebody is an operational, you make him whether CP admin. The man is not trained in admin, and the system is not configured in a way that they can do efficient human resource management. What other countries have done, for example, London Metropolitan Police, is actually to civilianize some aspect of this work and recruit professionals to help manage it with, of course, embedded police officers. I think that's one of the ways to go. But again, like we said, if you have ongoing organizations, there is also a culture. Even when you recruit upright people into law enforcement agencies, as we find it in Nigeria, over the time they imbibe the culture that they are not supposed to live on their salary alone, but to live from daily intake from corruption. And I think that is the challenge. Daily intake from corruption. So salary is not meant for livelihood. It is something else. So the livelihood itself is what we collect on a daily basis. And like a friend said, he said that's why you find officers on duty, on road, maybe enforcement, tend to be desperate in the evening if they have not collected enough for the day's drink and necessity.
Okay, thank you. Let's now go to Kaduna, where Honorable Mahmoud Ali is. We've talked about corruption, incompetence in our law enforcement, and AIG said that 1 to 400 Nigerians is not even visible. Some percentage of these law enforcement officers are now taken to work for politicians. You know, depreciate, you know, the number of policemen who are there to protect the citizens. Is that one reason why corruption is eating deep into our law enforcement? Because when you work with them, you get money outside your salary. And when you come back to the office, it becomes difficult to survive. Do you think that is a problem that needs to be looked into?
Thank you very much. I want to say corruption is not a function of scarcity and the individual nature of man, but essentially of the moral state of the person. So the fact you work with politicians and you are brought back to office, that will not make you corrupt, except of course if we are inherently corrupt by nature. And I would want to see a situation going with by the present trend. I would want to see a situation where policemen are no more posted to work with politicians, because they are helping in actually corrupting them. And again, this is what is encouraging some of them to want to make money at all cost and by all means. Because, for example, a member of a State House of Assembly who is only a secondarian and happens to become a member, and day in, day out, he's spending lavishly, and the policeman attached to him is seeing how things are, and maybe the policeman is even a graduate. This is a secondarian who, by all standards, is not his match, but is making so much money. So he will begin to think, except of course those who really have the fear of God in them, who would want to create other means by which he will be making extra money. Not to rely only on his salary. And this is why corruption in the services, not just the police alone, in all the services, is from top to bottom. A lot of things are going on, and people collecting money left, right, and center. And this is why the problem of banditry and kidnapping persisted in this part of the country, because from our findings, we have some unpatriotic citizens who are members of the services that are supplying arms and ammunition to some of these criminals that are terrorizing citizens. So something needs to be done in order to really address this. And the best way is whoever is caught, regardless of his position in the service, he should be used as an example. But where I'm caught napping, and all the evidence has been adduced, and it has proved that yes, I'm really guilty, but because of Oga at the top, I'm allowed to go. So if things continue like this, we'll continue to have the problem. Let whoever runs foul of the law, let he or she be dealt with. That is when people will begin to take cue. But the moment there is no deterrence, then people will do as they wish. This is my take.
Mohammed Ali, thank you very much. I mean, we can go on and on seeking to dissect the issue and then profile solutions. But just one issue arising from the last comment by Mohammed Ali. How do we then deal with this situation of the commercialization of law enforcement? And then the incentives it now creates for persons who are not part of that loop. I know that the Federal Executive Council recently said no, that for special protection there might be a fee, that there should be a fee payable for that. But persons have argued that it is this commercialization of law enforcement that creates ultimately, the system-wide distortions and invariably petty corruption that you find all over the place. If there is a cop for the generality of the public, that cop should serve the public rather than, say, look, come and be a personal bodyguard to me, Kingsley, because you are a member of such and such, a political entity, or because you are XYZ.
Honorable now, you need one.
How do we thank
Dishonorable.
Precisely. I mean, there have been cases. There have been. I mean, so I'm sure we all saw the videos. Everybody knows that you cannot abuse your nation's currency. And we saw recently, where Naira notes were being abused. And then there were law enforcement officers with their guns, who were supervising the process. AIG.
Thank you so much. Let me raise two issues. One, the issue of collective policing. Then secondly, inequality before the law in this country. You see, at times, when I've been to most of the developed countries several times, have you ever seen a security operative standing behind the British Prime Minister or the American President at any function?
Not at all.
Not at all. But here, what do you have? That's why I always emphasize on collective policing rather than individual policing. That takes us to the point you raised of assigning security operatives to individuals. Take the National Assembly, for instance. You'll be shocked at the total number of police officers that are attached to senators and House of Reps members here in Abuja and in their homes, their various states of origin. So, if we were to pull all of those out and put them into the common distance to protect everybody, this place would be a lot safer country. But rather, we want to prefer individual policing and law protection and all of that. And that is why, and because these guys treat these operatives too so well, they give them a lot of money, a lot of perquisites in office, blah, blah, blah. That's why everybody aspires to be an orderly to a lawmaker at the federal level or at the state level. So I think these are issues that we need to address. One, we should emphasize collective policing. Like what obtains in the US. We keep on saying, oh, we are practicing American, blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to certain things, we don't. If you ask me, we should withdraw all the police officers attached to some of these guys. Because all lives are equal.
Exactly.
All lives are equal. And the emphasis should be protecting all lives.
And on that
if you have overwhelming security everywhere,
yes,
most of these criminalities will not be perpetrated.
Exactly. Yes. On that note,
inequality before the law.
Yeah, Mr. Felix Ogbadu, retired AIG and legal practitioner. Thank you so much for your insights.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me too.
And Honorable Muhammad Ali, former member of Kaduna State House of Assembly and security expert. Thank you so much for your input into our conversation today. Professor Tanibi Alemika, Professor of Criminology and member Presidential Advisory Committee on Anti-Corruption, PACAC. As always, our pleasure having you on the program. And that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. Join us again tomorrow for another edition. I am Jumbo yourself.
And I'm Kingsley Osadola saying, you take care of yourself.